a couple of years ago, I decided, I drew a line in the sand and went, I'm going to go out and pursue it more in my own kind of way. And that's why I started Fish Films. So, gosh, I've worked in the industry for 20 years doing all sorts of things and working on different docos, whether that's filming it or editing it or, but I guess my docos, have more of a social kind of justice vibe to it and to give a voice. I've just really was compelled. I remember sitting on a set a couple of years ago, might have even been last year, where I was really convicted, and I thought, wow, like I've had the opportunity to work on films and behind the scenes and stuff, and I thought, wow, like these people already have a voice. I want to use my skill set for those that don't, and I want to do it respectfully. I think there's a fine line of I get the sensationalizing stuff, and and the like, I hate the word clickbait kind of thing. All that stuff really, I hate all that sort of stuff, but I understand to get people's attention and how to tell a good story and a compelling story. So for me, I guess I'm always trying to wrestle between, I understand that, but I also want to tell a story that's respectful. I also want to tell a story that is true. And, as a cinematographer, I want to put it in its best light and put the person, the situation, the circumstance, in its best light. So.
Hey there, it's Tim here, and I just recently went to the post office and dropped off our US presidential election ballots. We voted, and it was a really interesting experience, the whole process of sending an email, getting the ballot in the mail, actually getting the ballot in an email, printing it out, yada, yada, yada. I stood there at the Australian Post Office and off it went, and hopefully it gets there in time. But it made me think about this last episode that just got launched with Jude Kalman, who, aside from being an incredibly delightful person to interview, is such a gifted documentary filmmaker, cinematographer, tons of awards, spoke at the UN. Anyway, go to the episode and hear her story, and we get into a lot of stuff, and you would have heard a soundbite at the beginning of this here takeaway with Tim, which is just my opportunity just to really just recap what stood out to me in that last episode. But it made me think about this concept of giving people who don't have a voice an opportunity and amplifying their voices. And I love the way Jude talks about it. Is then it's not that the vulnerable, the hurting, those that have suffered incredible tragedies and have so much to teach us don't have a voice. It's precisely the opposite. They do have a voice, and we want to be able to take what they've endured and the richness of their story, and we want to take it out to the mainstream and share it with the world. And I love how she does that. But it kind of relates into this moment we're at right now, where for many of us we have an opportunity to cast a ballot in a vote for who's going to become the president of the US. Here in Queensland, where I live, we're going to have a state election soon. Who's going to run the state here? And for a lot of people, that's really important to be able to have a say. Growing up here in Australia, I never had the choice not to vote. I mean, you could not vote. You could just not show up, or you could, just not show up. But you'd get a fine. I think it was $50, and for a student at the time like me, $50 was a lot of money. And so, yeah, sure enough, I remember actually working at one of the elections where we were able to be a part of the whole counting process. A really fun honor to be part of an electoral, having a job, getting paid to be part of an election. But here we are thinking about this moment in time where there's a lot of chatter about make sure you vote. And I just, without making this political and telling you've got to vote or not, just contemplating this idea of having a say. When we lived in northern Iraq, it was the first opportunity I could have voted in a US election. I just become a dual citizen, a citizen of the USA. And I remember just because I couldn't be bothered, I just didn't vote. I didn't really have like a reason why not to. It was more like indifference, really. But it wasn't until then, living in Iraq, realizing, the Kurdistan region I lived in had a referendum where unanimously they voted to leave and start their own country. And this is a people group that are the largest people group in the world. They don't have their own country. There's 40 million worldwide Kurds and not one Kurdish state. And yet they cast a ballot. They were desperate to have their own voice, but it wasn't heard. It wasn't honored. And it really just made me think of what a privilege I have to have a say, to live where I can choose who's going to be my leader, where I can choose what kind of rules our society will make, the kind of world we're going to build together, the policies that will be made that affect me. And there's so many people in the world that just simply would die, literally die, to have that opportunity, or to give that opportunity to their children and their children's children. And they don't have that. It was a sombering thing, really thinking about it now, and the privilege now I have to have a say even in the US elections, as well as elections here where I live here in Australia. And I wanted to actually, just to kind of wrap things up, we've actually taken this idea of voting, of politics into our family life. What we have is this thing called a family council. I stole this idea from a TED talk I listened to. This lady, young girl from Africa, grew up in a home where dad was heavily political, and so what he did was he had a family council every week, and everyone had an opportunity to have a say with how the family was run. And so we've been doing that, and there's two rules that we have. We get together with the kids on a weeknight, and it's usually when we give them their pocket money, and we reflect on the week, of the areas that they could be proud of, the way they acted, areas that we need to address. But we also have an opportunity at the end where they can say anything, what is on their mind, things that they'd like to see changed in our family. It could be anything from where we go on holidays during the school holidays to a gripe they have with their sister or brother about something. And the rules are this: you can say anything about anybody. You can say something about mum and dad if you want, but the caveat is whatever you share, whatever you say, and whatever is shared in this family council stays within our home, doesn't go outside. So it gives them the freedom to be able to say what they want. And I never forget the first thing my son Charlie said. He got his chance to speak up, and he says, "Dad," he looks at me, and I was like, okay, I wonder what he's going to ask of me. He says, "Dad, I want you to get off your phone more when you're at home." Oh, could you imagine? Dagger in the heart. And sure enough, during the week, every time I would be on the phone, on the couch, checking something, he'd look over to me and he'd be say, "Dad, remember you agreed that you'd get off the phone more." And just could you imagine the empowerment that gave my son to think, hey, look, he has a say in this family of how things operate. And that's just a micro level of what we can do here in our communities, our neighborhoods, our street, and even to the point of who we elect as the leaders of our country. What an honor and privilege to participate. But if we don't participate, then we can't really complain. If my kid doesn't show up, now they don't have a choice not to at this stage. They have to be at family council, just like Australia makes you vote. But if they don't show up, if there's something that we decide in that meeting that where we're going to go, what we're going to do for holidays, they can't complain because they decided to not participate. And I just think that's just a powerful lesson of, hey, not wasting the privilege and the honor and the opportunity we have to have a say, to share, to raise our voice about how we want things to be done that affect us, that affect those around us. But that other people just don't have, and the privilege and honor it is to use that. Again, whatever you do, if you have a really good reason not to vote, I will just say this: look, it's your choice. I'm not here to tell you what you can and can't do, and certainly not who to vote for. But whatever you decide to do, think through it carefully, I think, is really the most important thing. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the full episode where we get into a lot of other things, a lot more to it than that. And you're going to love the upcoming episode it's about to drop with Mike McDonald. Check that one out. It is, he's from the Bible Project, and we get into all stuff justice and the Bible as well. So if that intrigues you, definitely check it out. Thanks so much, guys, for being part of the Justice Matters community. Talk to you next time. Cheers.